afternoon, good morning, wherever you are, and thank you for coming back for our final full day of CFC Foundation training. And on behalf of my colleagues on the CFC Foundation board, I want to thank you for being a part of this and asking questions and helping us make the campaign stronger. Today we have 3 sessions for you. We're going to talk about volunteerism, we're going to talk about campaign ethics, and then we're going to go through the CFC marketing plan. I do encourage you to complete the evaluation that we will be emailing to you later so that we can continue to improve upon this year after year. With that, I'm going to turn us over to our first session on promoting volunteerism. And we have Ms. Min Cox, who is a special programs coordinator with the Department of Defense, as well as Melanie Holden, Director of Campaign Strategy for Global Impact. So Min, take it away.
Thank you, Curtis. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Min Cox with DoD Charitable Campaigns, and I will be joined by Ms. Christina Taylor and Ms. Melanie Holden. Today, I hope we can convince you to promote volunteerism after this session. Next slide, please. I believe many of you in here experienced the volunteerism, what it can do for us. It is a very powerful force that can bring us together, and it can contribute to positive social change. So why not shift our focus to promoting volunteerism within our agencies? Answer to the question, we'll be covering the following areas: promoting volunteerism, creating a culture of volunteerism, what the value is, and how to get the federal employees involved in community service, and the benefits and the trends. Next slide, please. So you're a giver. I know many of us in here are givers in some capacity. You may not realize it though. When you give, it takes many forms. You volunteer at church, teaching maybe the Sunday school, tutor your neighbor's kids, hand out your pocket change when you see a homeless, and so on. I mean, the list is endless. As you know, federal employees are considered givers, so why not give it to CFC? So the online giving portal offers 2 ways to pledge volunteer hours. One, you can do it as individual yourself, or as a group. It can be a group event. Also, the portal allows you to sort for charities that offer volunteer opportunities. Look for that hand on the list. Also, by doing so, you can make a positive impact in our community by sharing your talents. You may be surprised that you have hidden talents that can help so many of our charities out there. Trust me, volunteering is contagious. Trust me, I've seen it. So what does it mean to host a volunteer event? Well, it's easy. Let me tell you. We have town halls, lunch and learns, all hands meetings, name it. Anytime there's a gathering, why don't you introduce the simple ways how to get involved, like writing letters, make beads. Last year we packed seeds, prepare foods. You may be surprised of what volunteer service that you could find. Also, why not invite one of the local charities to provide volunteerism to these events? Well, once you do that, most of the work is already done for you. Also think about, inviting charity speaker to one of these events. Educate, about importance of giving at one of these events. Very easy. Since we generally are givers, we can educate ourselves or the agency and include your family members. Why not do as a family thing? It brings the family together as well. I recently learned that, my son goes to Christian school. I recently learned they're part of CFC. I had no idea. I never knew that when I was supporting his school or the church that I was supporting CFC. As you know, there are so many different ways you can provide your service. But to check to see if the organization that you're part of is part of CFC, because it might surprise you. And then make sure to find out they accept volunteer hours. If that's the case, make sure you report that in that system. Next slide, please. I'm sorry, can you go back a slide? So I'm sorry, go back. I'm sorry. Never mind. Okay. So sorry about that. So what is creating a culture of volunteerism? Uniqueness. Each of the organization culture is very distinctive. Why not make the organization stand out, by implementing policy that allows people to feel inclusive regardless of interests or different backgrounds? Attract volunteers. When agencies volunteers well defined, people have better understanding of, the purpose and the values, and you'll see the people are more excited about getting, engaged. So when I think about that, NSA comes to mind. The agency has approved and organized volunteer program, which are implemented for the employees to volunteer all throughout the year, but it's not mandated. It's an excellent way to keep the employees really engaged all the time. Inspire. By encouraging volunteerism, you can encourage others to do the same, whether it's individual or as a group. Talk about the volunteer culture. The environment can create invisible threads that connect different people from different areas, talents, and perspective to the overall mission, a volunteer culture, I like to call it. We have a group of volunteers last year from different agencies, and we did a volunteer event at the local food bank, which was really, really rewarding experience and excited them to continue to volunteer on their own. We saw Special Olympics, and, they went off their own and started volunteering at different agencies, at different organizations, and brought other agencies together, and it spread like a wildfire. Like I mentioned, it is very contagious. Volunteering has many benefits. It's team-oriented, it fosters adhesiveness through communication. You can spark interest, not only for volunteering, but different areas. Enriching environment. Unique backgrounds and experience encourages collaboration and growth. My favorite is volunteerism can be monetized as donations. That is my favorite. Next slide. So what is the value? Well, I think it makes me feel good, and I should make you feel good to give back to the community. But globally, it strengthens our community and builds social network. Remember, the folks that volunteer through nonprofits are most likely to help your neighbors, friends, and coworkers. They got your back. Here are some human relationship factors. You connect with community, social and relationship skills. It increases empathy. And my mom likes to say it reduces loneliness and depression. It will make you feel socially connected. The act of giving back provides a purpose and fulfillment. It truly feels good to help others. Next slide. So how does it benefit you in this room and the agency? Well, simply, you can gain new experiences through volunteerism, and you can connect that new connections that you never had, because like-minded attract each other, I think. Volunteerism promotes work-life balance, which I love. Work balance is very important to most of us, I would think. Enhances well-being and satisfaction, and boosts employee morale. Simply put, you can learn something new. Next slide. Well, I like to sum this up by saying, keep it simple. Regardless whether it's in person or virtual, keep it simple and have fun. Next slide. Next, we have Ms. Christina Teller, who serves as the specialist in corporate development and partnership for Operation Smile, where she's been an integral part of the team for the past 3 years. In her role, she expertly stores global corporate partners, ensuring that relationships thrive through thoughtful grant management and impact employee engagement incentives. Her dedication helps facilitate organization mission to deliver life-changing surgeries to children and adults around the world. Thank you. Ms. Taylor?
Thank you, Min.
You're welcome.
And it's great to be here with you all today and to have the opportunity to briefly speak about our organization, what we do, and how Operation Smile really values volunteering in a multitude of ways. So for those of you who don't know, I'm going to give a little bit of context around the need and who we are as an organization, and then I'm going to jump into some of our key volunteering activities, and how volunteering has really been critical for how our organization has come to be what it is today. So for our context, there are 5 billion people in the world who lack access to safe, affordable, and timely surgery. 7 million of them are living with untreated cleft conditions, and of those 7 million, 5 million patients with cleft conditions live in the countries where Operation Smile operates. We were founded in 1982 by Dr. Bill and Kathy McGee, where as a global nonprofit, we bridge the gap in access to essential surgeries and healthcare, starting with cleft surgery and comprehensive care. So we provide medical expertise, training, research, care through our dedicated staff and medical and student volunteers around the world, working alongside local governments, nonprofits, and health systems, and supported by our generous donors and corporate partners. Today, I'll share how essential medical and student volunteers are for the delivery of our programmatic activities, and then I'll talk a little bit about the volunteer opportunities that we offer our partners. You can go to the next slide. One more slide for me. Thank you. So we rely on the skill, passion, and dedication of more than 6,000 medical volunteers from across 67 countries to deliver safe surgery, comprehensive cleft care, and training programs around the world. On the screen on the right side, you can see a few snapshots of just a few of our medical volunteers at work at our surgical programs. Some countries represented there are Guatemala, Ghana, and Madagascar in our top right. Education is the center of our strategy at Operation Smile, and empowering local health professionals through long-term and intensive training and education creates surgical solutions that last. Because of how we have structured our programming, more than 80% of Operation Smile surgeries are performed by in-country medical staff, with half of all volunteers coming from low and middle income countries that we serve. This takes education and partnership, empowering local professionals through training and partnering with ministries of health, academic institutions, corporations, local health professionals, and other NGOs. It takes a lot of people. These partnerships are revolutionizing how entire health systems deliver surgical care and ensuring solutions that last. More than just our medical volunteers, community, grassroots, and student volunteers also selflessly donate their efforts to help Operation Smile fulfill its mission and vision. On the left side of the screen, you can see a few examples of how our student volunteers have engaged with us over the years. Operation Smile has known from the beginning that engaging the next generation is critical for progress, and thus we have a robust student programs where young adults can engage and volunteer their time with Operation Smile. On the top left, you can see one of our student volunteers, Laura Alvarez, speaking to the UN, where she advocated for Operation Smile patients. Laura was born with a cleft condition and actually received timely treatment, but she knows that this is not the reality for many patients around the world. Laura is one of many student advocates who are part of critical conversations to advance health equity around the world by sharing their stories. We engage student volunteers through school clubs and student leadership conferences where they can learn about Operation Smile and engage with our organization. The bottom left photo shows a group of student volunteers who actually went to Capitol Hill to advocate for the Ensuring Lasting Smiles Act, also known as ELSA. ELSA is a federal legislation that would require all private groups and individual health plans to cover medically necessary items or services because of congenital anomalies, including conditions like cleft lip and cleft palate. These are just a couple of examples of the amazing work that our student volunteers are doing. So as you can see, we really can't do our work at Operation Smile without our volunteers, whether they're students or community or medical volunteers. But now I want to talk about a little bit of how partners can volunteer with us and some activities that we have created along the way so that people can engage with our organization. You can go to the next slide. So we have many ways that partners can volunteer with Operation Smile. One of our newest opportunities came into development actually as a result of COVID. So prior to COVID, a significant part of our volunteering opportunities were for volunteers to travel into the field to see our surgical programs firsthand, which you can potentially imagine is a very impactful experience for a volunteer. However, due to COVID, because many of our programs were temporarily shut down at the time, and because of travel restrictions for many places, that was no longer possible. And so we had to think outside of the box in a creative way to engage our partners. So you can see a few pictures here, but my favorite one to talk about is the first one. So under the Learn picture, we have a beautiful picture of one of our patients. Her name is Faustina. She lives in Ghana, and she received surgery from Operation Smile. Her story is actually the basis for one of our volunteer activities called an empathy workshop. Our empathy workshop is an instructor-led workshop that educates about the barriers to access healthcare that patients with cleft conditions face globally and aims to increase participants' empathy for these patients and for each other. Participants step into the shoes of a patient's family and tackle challenges together to problem solve as a group with the goal of trying to get their child with a cleft condition to an Operation Smile surgical program far from their home. This is not easy with financial, family, and geographic barriers. The team must collaborate and work in the best interest of their child, the patient, to reach the program. During this 90-minute workshop, our goal is for participants to learn something, to feel something, and to do something. Learn about global health inequities and how Operation Smile is leaning in to create sustainable solutions. Feel something for the patients and families that Operation Smile serves and connects with fellow participants. And then do something with the knowledge that they have gained during their time together. That do something can be donations, hands-on activities, raising awareness around cleft conditions, and Operation Smile's work to increase care to 1 million patients in the next 10 years. So that's one of my favorites because it's one that can be delivered virtually with participants all over the world. We've done it in breakout rooms with Zoom or with Teams or other different virtual platforms. It can also be hosted in a hybrid way where participants from our partners are together, say in a conference room or at their office, and an Operation Smile facilitator joins virtually. Or we have actually done these in person since things started opening up since COVID. That has been an option. And so we actually bring the experience to our partners so that they can experience walking the journey of a patient and understanding what they go through so they can learn, feel, and do something as well. Outside of that really awesome opportunity, we also have a few others. So we can build things together. You've probably seen something similar to this, maybe with some other charity partners, but we have two really specific ones for our patients. On the top, you see a beautiful photo of one of our patients wrapped snugly in a blanket that was actually made by one of our participating partners. It's a no-sew blanket, so super accessible. You don't have to have sewing skills to create these beautiful fleece blankets that are then sent off to our surgical programs all over the world. And then also in the bottom photo, you can see a picture of a patient with what we call our smile bags. And those are packed for every single patient that receives surgery from Operation Smile. So in those bags, they receive hygiene products, so toothbrush and toothpaste and shampoo and soap, really simple, basic needs, but many of our patients have traveled very, very far from their homes and either can't afford or they haven't been able to pack all of their needs. And so we just provide this really simple care package for them following surgery so they have everything they need. One of my favorite things in the smile bags is actually a very small mirror so that every patient who receives surgery with Operation Smile can see their new smile following surgery right away. These are two volunteer hands-on activities that a lot of times are actually paired with our empathy workshops. So participants can learn more about us, they can feel connected to the work that we do, and then they can do something. that directly impacts the patients that we work with. And then finally, give. I know that many of you heard this before on platforms such as this, but we can't do the work that we do at Operation Smile, just like many other charities around the world, without donations from our partners. And so those fundraising opportunities can take the traditional route of asking your friends and family for donations to an organization that you care deeply about, or it can be a little bit more creative. This picture on the right I love is a photo of one of our Cycle for Smile events where participants rode bikes and cycled with their families or pushed along in this cute little wheelie with this little guy, and raised awareness around Operation Smile, and then also raised funds and donations for our organization. So those are a few ways that partners and participants can engage with us as an organization. I hope that this inspired you to want to volunteer more, whether with us or with another charity of your choice. Thank you so much for your time, and back over to you.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Christina. We truly appreciate you for joining us today and for sharing all the impactful, life-changing work of Operation Smile. And there's not much more to add between all the valuable information that Christina and Min have both shared. September 1st is just around the corner. So when the CFC kicks off this year, please consider donating dollars and your time this year. I like to think of volunteerism this way. When you pledge money, which is very important, you're putting your dollars to work by placing those dollars into the hands of charities who are on the front lines of those causes that are near and dear to you. But when you volunteer pledge hours, or when you pledge volunteer hours, you are actually walking the walk. You are, and let me just step back and say, when you pledge volunteer hours and fulfill those hours, because both go hand in hand. It's great to plug in 15 or 8 hours if you want to do a full day or more hours. It's just great to pledge those hours, but it's equally important to make sure that you go and fulfill those pledge hours that you've done. And so walk the walk. If you pledge those hours, you're now then actually putting your hands at work. So that combination of dollars at work and hands at work is really what is the essence of a CFC giver in the CFC season. So we thank you. We thank you for your time today. And we felt that it would be kind of fun to maybe share with you some behind the scenes and some information and some trends. So we'll close this session with some numbers that support the importance of volunteering. By providing volunteer opportunities, you're helping out your CFC community. It also creates you're also creating engaging volunteer opportunities. If you're a charity, so for both audiences today, the donor side, you're helping your community. For charities, make sure that you provide all types of interesting, hands-on or engaging opportunities so that donors can connect with you in a very personal way. Next slide, please. Within the CFC last campaign year, more than 1,500 federal workers pledged over 81,000 volunteer hours, which has a value of over $2 million, as you can see here. We see that most people preferred pledging via the online portal. Others chose to make their pledges using the mobile app, which is gaining some traction, which is wonderful, and even by the paper pledge forms. And then we had, and Min talked about this, go ahead and grab your groups, grab your coworkers. You can also volunteer pledge hours, and then when you show up, you can bring your family. So make this just a fun, meaningful, impactful experience. And so you can see here that we had teams who pledged, or groups who pledged over 2,000 or 2,300 hours collectively, which is fun. Next slide, please. And we also thought it'd be interesting for you to see some of the CFC zones that had the highest volunteer hours pledged last year. As you can see, there's lots of volunteering going on, or it should be going on now. If you haven't done your volunteer hours for the past season, you still have a few weeks left, but there are some zone changes for 2024, keep that in mind, but this is from 2023. And you can see National Capital Area led the bunch of our top 3, followed by Oklahoma and North Texas Panhandle, and then the Sunshine Zone. So those were our top 3 zones with volunteer hours pledged. Next slide. And then here's the same scenario, but by federal agencies this time. NASA headquarters and their various centers was our top federal agency with volunteer hours in the CFC, followed by the Peace Corps. And then lastly, rounding out the top 3, we have the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System. And the next slide. Okay, great, thank you. Again, just as we round this out, and before we conclude, for our campaign planners, co-workers, and even you as a federal donor, when you're out there and sharing your story, first part of walking the walk is after you've given or pledged your dollars, but also volunteer hours, make sure that you're inviting your federal donors or your co-workers to join in the giving. Remember to mention that they have the option of pledging dollars and hours to charities. It's a great way, again, to have fun, do something engaging, even the groups. That's just a wonderful opportunity to build team strength and also to do team building throughout your organization. You can even challenge other departments. That would be fun as well. All in all, whatever you decide, you're making a difference. So know that, and we want to thank you for it. To our charity friends, don't miss out on this opportunity. When you're planning events, make sure that you're focusing on engagement and impact over involvement in fundraising when you're doing volunteer events. Studies show that donors are so apt to being more loyal, and they turn over or have recurring donations, and they're open to increasing those donations after completing volunteer hours and actually seeing firsthand your organizational needs and the amazing work that you're doing. And so we thank you again for your time today. Last slide. I know we're right at time, so don't know, Curtis, if there is a question that we can answer like in 5 seconds.
Yeah, I do have one. Is there a list of CFC related volunteer opportunities like what was just referenced by Operation Smile, where people can do it from home, like making blankets, for example?
Right. So what we recommend is there are a list of volunteer opportunities, and Min, I think you and I had discussed too, where that list, I don't know if that list is still maintained and updated. Do you know offhand?
As far as I know, I have not seen it for this year, but in the previous times, there were lists of Excel that, listed different zones and stuff like that. So if there is one, we'll make sure we share that information with everybody.
And we
All
will
right.
have more Q&A at 4 p.m. We'll have breakout sessions. So if you had questions for Melanie or Min, then please come back at 4 o'clock.